Found another gem on Gutenberg.org. Figured we'd have another story time. Everybody knows how to read, but everybody likes to be read to on occasion. This zinger of a book is called Careers of Danger and Daring from 1901. There's a section in the book called The Locomotive Engineer. I figured it would be appropriate to read. And then we'll add some O-gauge train videos in the background to round it out. So saddle up and enjoy and relax. If you've got the kiddos with you, gather round. Hopefully they will drift off to sleep if it's about that time. The Locomotive Engineer. How it feels to ride at night on a locomotive going 90 miles an hour. That's a big speed in 1901. It is 8:30 p.m. any night you please, and for miles through the yards of East Chicago, lights are swinging, semaphore arms are moving. Men in clicking signal towers are juggling with electric buttons and pneumatic levers. Target lights on 100 switches are changing from red to green, from green to red. Everything is clear. Everything is all right. The Lakeshore Mail is coming, with 80 tons of letters and papers in its pouches. Relays of engines and engineers have brought these messages, this news of the world, thus far on their journey. Up the Hudson they have come, and across the Empire State, and along the shores of Lake Michigan, nearly 1,000 miles in 24 hours, which is not so bad, although the hottest, maddest rush is yet to come. It is a fine thing to know the men who drive the engine on these trains. Just to see them is something, and to make them talk, if you can do it, is better business than interviewing most celebrities you have heard about. To this end I set out, one evening early in January, for the great roundhouse of the Northwestern Road that lies on the outskirts of Chicago. A strange place, surely. Is this to one who approaches it unprepared? A place where yellow eyes glare out of deep shadows, where fire dragons rush at you with crunchings and snortings, where the air hisses and roars. It might be some demon menagerie, there in the darkness. To this place of fears and pitfalls I came an hour or so before starting time, and here I found Dan White, one of the Northwestern crackerjacks, giving the last careful touches to locomotive 908 before the night's hard run. In almost our first words, my heart was won by something White said. I had mentioned Frank Bullard of the Burlington Road, a rival by all rights, and immediately this bluff, broad-shouldered man exclaimed, he's a fine fellow, Bullard is, and he knows how to run an engine. White would fight Bullard at the throttle to any finish, but would speak only good words of him. Tell me, I said, about the great run you made the other night. From a dozen lips I've heard of White's tremendous dash from Chicago to Clinton, Iowa. Oh, it wasn't much, we had to make the time up, and we did it, didn't we, Fred? This is to the fireman who nodded in assent, but said nothing. You made a record, didn't you? Well, we went 138 miles in 143 minutes. That includes 3 stops and 2 slowdowns. I don't know as anybody has beat this much. By dint of questioning, I drew from this modest man some details of his achievement. The curve-bent stretch of 17 miles became, between Franklin Grove and Nelson, they did in 14 minutes. And a part of this, beyond Natcha, they took an 80-mile pace. They covered 5 miles between Clarence and Stanwood in 3 minutes and a half, and they made 2 miles beyond Denison at over 100 miles an hour. As the mail rushed west, word was flashed around ahead, and crowds gathered at the stations to cheer and marvel. There must have been 500 people on the platform at Dixon, said White, telling the story, and they looked to me like swarms of ants, just a black wriggling mass, and then they were gone. We came to a bridge there after a big reverse curve with a downgrade, and I guess no one will ever know how fast we were going, as we slammed her around one way and then slammed her around the other way. It was every bit of 90 miles an hour. You got all you wanted, didn't you, Fred? The fireman looked up, torch in hand, and remarked in a dry monotone, Going through Dixon, I said my prayers and hung on, stretched out flat. That's what I'd done. Fred and I, continued White, both got letters about the run from the superintendent. Here's mine if you'd like to read it. The pleasure of these two blackened men over this graciousness of the superintendent was a thing to see. For such a bit of paper, crumpled and smeared with oil, I believe they would have taken the Mississippi at a jump, engine, train, and all. Superintendent's orders, superintendent's praise. There's the beginning and end of all things for them. My first long ride on one of these splendid locomotives with the Burlington night mail, no passengers. 590 pulling her and Frank Bullard at the throttle. It's said that the Baldwin Locomotive Works never turned out a faster engine than 590. The man must be a giant whose head will top her drivers, and for all her 70 tons, there is speed in every line of her. She is a young engine, too, only 4 years old, and Bullard swears he will back her in the matter of getting over the rails to do anything that steel and steam can do. She's willing and gentle, sir, and easy running. You'll see in a minute. These words from Bullard, first-class engine driver of the CB&Q, a long, loosely jointed man, with the eye of the build of a scout. As he spoke, they were coupling us to mail cars in preparation for the start. In overalls and sweater I had come, with typewritten authority to make runs for that night. This was the first week in January, the second time Bullard had drawn the throttle for Burlington on the new fast schedule. Burlington lay off there in Iowa, on the Mississippi, with all the night and all the state of Illinois between us. Now the train stands ready, 3 mail cars and an engine, no stick besides, no Pullman comforts here, no bunk for sleeping, no man aboard has the right to sleep. Everything is hustle and business. Already the mail clerks are swarming at the pouches like printers on a rush edition. See those last bags swung in through the panel doors? Not even the president of the road may ride here without permission from the government. Bullard takes up a red smoking torch and looks 490 over. He fills her cup and prods a 2-foot oiler in her rods and bearings. Dan Cleary, the fireman, looks out of his window on the left and chews complacently. Down the track beside his locomotive, 1909 backs up, a first-class engine she, but 590 balks over her as the king of the herd might over some good ordinary working elephant. As she stands here now, purring through her black iron throat, 590 measures 16 feet 3 inches from rails to stack top. Both engines blow out steam that rolls up in silver clouds to the electric lights. Bullard climbs to his place at the right, and a hiss of air tells that he has tested the brakes. Under each car, 16 iron shoes close against 16 wheels and stay there. Down the length of the train goes the repairman with his kit, and makes sure that every contact is right, then pulling a rope 4 times at the rear, or upon 4 hissing signals answer in the cab, Bullard shuts off the air. It's all there is to stop her with, says he, so we take no chances with it. She's got high-speed brakes on her, 590 has, 110 pounds to the inch. 24, Dan, he adds, and snaps his watch. We start at 30. Dan chews on. Bad wind tonight, he says. Regular gale. Bullard nods. I know, we're 15 minutes late, too. Make Burlington on time? Got to. You hit it up, and I'll skin her. 26, Dan. 4 minutes to wait. 2 station officials come up with a polite inquiry. The thermometer is falling, they say, and we shall have a bitter cold over in the plains. They reach up with cordial handshakes. I pull my cap down and take my stand beside Bullard. Our side of the cab is quite cut off from the fireman's side by a swelling girth of boiler, which leaves an alleyway at right and left, wide enough for a man's body and no wider. Bullard and I are at the right-hand alleyway. Bullard's back and black cap just before me. Dan with his shovel is out on the shaky steel shelf behind, that bridge that spaces between the engine and tender. This is where he works, poor lad. We are breathing coal dust and torch smoke and warm oil. Whoosh comes the signal. Instantly we are moving. Lights flash about us everywhere. Green lights, white lights, red lights. A phantasmagoria of drugstore bottles. The track shines yellow far ahead. A steady pounding and jarring begins, and grows like the roar of battle. Our cab heaves with the tugging of a captive balloon. Our speed increases amazingly. We seem constantly on point of running straight through blocks of houses and escape only by sudden and disconcerting sways, round curves that all lead, one will vow, straight into black chasms under the dazzle. Whoever rides here for the first time feels that he is ticketed for sure destruction, understanding that this plunging engine must necessarily go off the rails in 2 or 3 minutes say 5 at the latest, for what guidance he reasons can make man get from a million crazy lights, and who that is human can avoid a snarl in such a tangle of bumper switches. I am free to confess, for my own part, that I found the first half hour of my ride on 590, absolutely terrifying. Thus, at breakneck speed, we come out of Chicago, all slow-going city ordinances to the contrary notwithstanding. We are chasing a transcontinental record schedule, and have 15 minutes to make up. I breathe more freely as we get into open country. We're going like the wind, but the track is straighter, and the dark comfortable. I begin to notice this, and things with better understanding. As the lurches come, I brace myself against the boiler side without fear of burning. That is something learned. I find out later that I owe this protection to a 2-inch layer of asbestos. I catch a faint sound of the engine bell, and discover to my surprise that it has been ringing from the start. Indeed, it rings without ceasing all the way to Burlington, the rope pulled by a steam-jerking contrivance, but the roar of the engine drowns it. Deep shadows enwrap the cab, all the deeper for the glare of the flashes through every minute or two as Dan, back there on his iron shelf, stokes coal in the red-hot door. 2 faint lights burn out for gauges, a jumping water column in front, a pair of wavering needles on the boiler. These Bullard watches coolly, and from time to time reaches back past me to turn the injector cock, whereupon steam hisses by my head. For the most part, he is quite still, like an Indian pilot, head forward at the lookout window, right hand down by the air brake valve, left hand across the throttle lever, with 1 second's jump to the reversing lever that rises up from the floor straight before him. So we race into towns and roar through them. He sounds the chime whistle, making its deep voice challenge the darkness. At curves, he eases her with the brakes, and for grades and levers stretching and bridges, he notches the throttle up or down as it's needed. Watch his big, strong grip on the polished handles. Think of the hours he spends here all alone. This man who holds life and death in his quick, sure judgment. We'll pause the reading for today, and we'll pick it back up in our next installment and continue this thrilling 90-mile-an-hour steam locomotive and mail train journey. Hot diggity dog. Thanks for listening, and I hope it was worth your while. Peace.